Hello everyone, I want to show you guys this new poleaxe that I made. So I've done a few of these already, and every time I do it I kind of like refine a few things. So with this one over here, I gave it a pronged head that's like really open. I did this with a previous one, but as you can see on this one it's a little bit more closed. I mean, either design is historically correct, and I mean sometimes it's solid too. But the benefit of the prongs is like you get a much wider hitting surface, right? But you also get the weight savings, right? Because if this area here was full of metal, this would have been a lot heavier. Okay, so the other benefit of having these prongs is that they tend to bite better into plate armor rather than skip. Because versus this side over here, if this hits plate, a lot of times it'll glance. The way I kind of think of this is like this is the side that I want to hit plate armor with, and this is the side that I want to hit mail armor with, right? Because it's going to like really concentrate that force. Or this is the side that I want to hook with or trap, right? So that's how you use it. So on this side over here, it's pronged, and what I did over here is I also put a fuller into the back spike. On the last one that I did, I have the prongs here, right, for the weight saving and all that. But what I did is instead of putting a fuller here, I just made it a little bit thinner. So on that one, I wanted to experiment with the fuller. And the way I do this is when this is yellow hot, I basically just put an axe in there, right? And I hammer it, and that's what splits it. And then I'll put the axe blade that way, and I'll split it. And then to create the fuller, same thing. I put the axe in here, hammered it, and that created a split. Same thing here. Put the axe blade here, hammered it, split it. So that's how I made the fuller, right? And then, you know, of course, I filed it down, smoothed it out. So the distinguishing characteristic of the poleaxe is that it's a two-piece head. Okay, so you've got a top spike that comes down, and it basically sits on top of your hammer spike or your axe spike, whatever you got here, and it rivets down to the shaft and locks it in place. This is as opposed to a halberd, which is a one-piece head, right? So with the poleaxe, what generally happens is because it's because you got two metal pieces that need to be fitted together, there's generally more weight in this area over here. So it's, you know, overall it ends up being a little bit heavier, a little bit more stout. I think it's better for hitting plate armor. And also it's got the hammer, which is really great for percussively hitting plate armor. Now, this area from here to here, right, as you can see, the langets, the side langets come all the way to the edge. So this is also a hitting surface from here to here, right? And there's like 1/8 of an inch of steel on both sides. So that's like a total of 1/4 inch of steel in the shaft over here. So everything from here up is a hitting surface. And then the top spike is this diamond section, you know, cross section over here. So this is like really stout. And one of the things I've been working on is I've been trying to find ways to make this top spike, like, you know, so that it, you know, basically design it in such a way that it can handle a lot of force going this way. Okay, because that's a you know, that's a stress. What happens when the top spike hits like this? If this area over here isn't robust enough, it's going to want to open up. Okay, so I in some of the earlier versions that I made, this area here was a little bit thinner, and then when I basically did like destruction testing on it, and I saw that that's where it was like wanting to open up a little bit. So on this one, like I mean, it's really thick. I mean, this started off as 1.25 inches, and I basically hammered it down so that it's like this area here is about 1/2 inch, but this area over here I left it like really thick. I still filed it down a little bit because I had like too much metal there and it was a little bit too heavy. So what happens is these two pieces fit together, and they actually, let me get behind the camera so you guys can get a look at this. So the hammer piece here is actually cut in there, right? So that the top spike comes down and it locks in there. So even if I didn't have this pin going through it, this couldn't move, because it's basically like, picture this like a man sitting in a saddle, right? It's basically locked in place. See how it locks in place, right? And then the rivet is just like an extra reinforcement that goes all the way through. It's basically just extra security, but it wasn't even really necessary. A lot of times you'll see like a side spike over here, right? And people think that, oh, you know, cool, you can hit with the side. That side spike is really just a rivet. Yeah, you don't want to hit people with your fastener. On some Poleaxe designs, it's like historical Poleaxe designs, that rivet is actually necessary to hold the pieces together, because they haven't been cut the way I have it cut. And they're both historical, right? They use numerous methods to put these things together. With this method here, the way I've cut it, there's a lot of reinforcement, you know, the pieces being locked together. This is a really robust design, but the cost of that is more weight, right? There's a little bit of extra weight, because now you have these pieces like almost overlapping each other and reinforcing each other. And then I put the rivet through as, like I said, as extra security. And then the way it works is these side langets that you see here, right? They come all the way up, and they actually go all the way to the, get that camera. These side langets that you see on the shaft here, where is it? There it is. Come up, and they come all the way to the top, and they actually insert into the head. So the head, the hammerhead, is actually also cut on the underside, so that the side langets come up and they insert, like, I don't know, maybe an eighth of an inch or something, and you know, maybe a little bit more. They insert in there, and they'll lock in place. Okay, and then the top spike comes down, and it goes on top of the side langets. And this is like super strong. I've been working on this, like I said, I've done a couple of previous models, and as I do this, I test it. Basically using these barrels. And then you got the end cap. So I've been designing these and testing them, you know, for like maximum strength, you know. So these aren't just like wall hangers. These are, you know, I've designed these to be battlefield weapons. Okay. So now, as far as like weight reduction, one of the methods that I've used is I've tapered this down both this way and this way. So because it's tapered down, it's still light enough that I can hold this from the end, you know, and swing it. On this one over here, I didn't taper as much, so there's a bit more weight on this, you know, in the shaft area over here. Okay, so the cost of that was that this had to be a little bit shorter. Okay, not a whole lot shorter, but just a little bit shorter. I mean, the hammer's a little bit lower, so the balance is pulled back a little bit. But that's because this shaft here ended up being a little bit thicker. So this came out, this is about 3/4 of an inch. This is an inch wide over here. But I used a different construction method on this, okay? So whereas that one, the langets come down and they go around the head, on this one, they go through the head, right? There's a hole in there that's called an eye, okay? And then there's a shoulder over here. And what happens is this head over here comes up through the bottom, right, through these legs, and it stops on the shoulder, and then the legs split, and they come down on a shaft, and that's what locks it in place. So you always gotta have like some type of an hourglass shape, right? Some kind, you know, you gotta waist it somehow to lock the hammer in place. So here you got a shoulder on top, and the legs that spread over here, and that's what locks it in place. And again, this is like super strong. As far as the back spike, a lot of times people think that you're going to puncture through armor with that back spike. That will never happen. Believe me, I've tested it a million times on these barrels. If you're wearing mail, yeah, that's going to really concentrate the force. And this is kind of like a mini axe that you're going to feel, okay, a lot. But no, you're never going to, no matter how sharp you make this, you're not going to puncture through plate. And even if you do puncture the plate, it's just going to go in a little bit and it's going to stop, right? And usually there's a lot of times there's a space between the plate and the person's body. Sometimes because of the gambeson. Sometimes it's just, there's a hollow area there. So you will never puncture through plate with either this or this. You might puncture through mail, but even if you don't, I mean, there's just such a concentration of force on these tips that it's going to hurt a lot and it's going to incapacitate somebody. So on this one over here, I put a butt spike on this, right? So one of the things that I have found with the butt spike, yeah, it's great because obviously now you've got both ends to thrust with. But one of the things to be aware of with an actual spike, it can also get caught up on your stuff, right? So even if you've got armor, now obviously if I'm not wearing any armor, right? I wouldn't want a butt spike there because I'm going to gut myself, right? As I swing in certain situations, right? But even if I'm wearing armor, right? That butt spike can get caught up on my armor, on my belts, whatever I have on my body. So that would be a reason why maybe you don't want a butt spike. Again, that's just a practical thing that I've discovered just from testing these things out. On this one over here, I put an end cap. So the benefit of the end cap is that, first of all, you can hold it right there to the end, right? Right, and around. You can still hit with the end cap. You still have a very valid hammer on this end over here. So you've got basically a hammer here, you got a hammer here, and then you got a spike here and a spike here. So I really like this design. I think it's really practical. Between these two designs, where here you've got the legs that come around the hammerhead, and here they go through the eye. I think this design can be a little bit lighter because of the shaft, whereas here the shaft has to be a little bit thicker because basically the langets need to spread and come down and sit on it. So that adds a little bit of weight. You have to have a shoulder here to stop it. Sometimes you'll see the shoulder in the form of like a square or round, right? But you need to have some type of a shoulder, or you could have some type of a shoulder. I have seen the design where they just put a rivet through it. I wouldn't trust that by itself on a Poleaxe. I would rather have, I think a rivet like I have on this one, or running a spike through it, is good in addition to using one of these other two methods to lock it in place. Okay, so like I said, here it goes around. The legs come around the head, and basically the hammer's cut so that and it's fitted so that it locks in place. So even if there was no rivet here, it would still lock it in place. Where on this one over here, it goes through it to lock it in place. Now I am planning to make one more. I'll probably make many more, but I'm planning, like the next one that I'm going to make is going to be this design. The difference is I want to put a hammer on this side and I want to put an axe on that side. Why would you want an axe? Axes are great for fighting unarmored people or unarmored horses. One of the things I've seen, like on the Bayeux Tapestry, a good way to take out a horse is to put an axe in his forehead. Because if you just try to stab the horse, you're just going to get the horse pissed off, and the rider on top of it pissed off. But if you put an axe into a horse's head, there's a good chance that you're going to drop it. It's also great for dealing with unarmored people. Whereas with this, I'm basically hitting percussively with this area here. Basically, I'm stabbing somebody with this who's unarmored is probably the fastest way to take them out. But this weapon here, these Poleaxes, are primarily intended for people in armor, right? You got, guys in armor fighting other guys in armor. If I've got this, if I'm not in armor, right? We're gonna have a duel and we're not in armor, and I have this and you've got a sword, you're probably gonna win that fight because the sword's gonna be a lot faster and I'm gonna be slower with this, okay? So this becomes an advantage amongst people in armor, okay? So question now becomes with the halberd, right? Why would I want to use the halberd? So the halberd is basically a one-piece design, right? So whereas this, you got this piece is separate, you got this piece and this piece, you got two pieces here. And because you got two pieces here that kind of lock together, this section over here needs to be a little bit thicker, right? So that the pieces can lock together. With the halberd, because it's a one piece, you don't need the extra metal here, right? So it can be a little bit thinner, a little bit lighter. So that's the reason why halberds are often a little bit longer, okay? So that's a benefit of a halberd, but like, why would you want a halberd? So now, halberds did exist in the 14th, 15th century. They did coexist with poleaxes. But I think that the halberds, because after the 14th, 15th century, you kind of see that, okay, poleaxes become less popular, halberds become more popular. Why would that be? In the time period of armor, it's really beneficial to have a hammer, right? So if you want me to construct a polearm with a hammer, it's a lot easier, cheaper for me to make this in the two-piece design, okay? If you don't want a hammer, right, then yeah, making this out of a one-piece design is easier, cheaper, okay? So once plate armor kind of goes away, right, because now you start seeing more and more firearms on the battlefield, so you start seeing less and less plate armor. They're still wearing like a breastplate, but you'll see less armor on other parts of their body, primarily because they want the breastplate to be a little bit thicker, so it has a better chance of stopping some firearms. But now because a man can only carry so much weight, so as the breastplates get thicker, they start dropping off, and they start losing armor on other parts of their body. So as you get more and more other body parts exposed, it kind of makes sense now to rely more on cutting weapons. So less need of a hammer, having an axe blade becomes more beneficial. So now with the halberd, you can have an axe and a spike, right? So you can have an axe in the front, you can have a back spike, which is really good for hooking. If you look at the back spikes on halberds, they're usually pretty short. They're mainly for hooking, like hooking people off of horses. And then you got a top spike. And because they're a little bit lighter, they tend to be a little bit longer. So I think that's directly related to the fact that, hey, 17th, even in the 18th century, less armor on the battlefield. I don't need the hammer, so I can go with the halberd, right? Which generally is not going to have a hammer. So my plan right now is to make one more poleaxe, hammer this side, axe on that side. And then after that, I'm going to make a halberd, which will be just basically an axe and a small hook on the backside. The reason I haven't really made a halberd, I did make one prototype, but the main thing with making a good halberd is I needed a bigger oven, right? Because with the poleaxe, this is made in pieces, right? So this piece separately and this piece separately will fit into my forge, okay? With the halberd, the whole thing is one piece. The whole head is one piece. So I needed to make a larger forge, okay? And I finally committed to doing that. So one big enough to hold like because remember, it's not just a question of length. You also need the width. If this is all going to be one piece, okay? So I do plan to make a halberd. And when I make one, I will definitely share it with you guys. So yeah, drop some comments. Let me know what you guys think. So this is a fun thing I've started here with the blacksmithing. A lot of times people will ask me like, how did I get into making these things? For you guys watching, that have been watching my channel, I do armored combat, and usually when I'm fighting, most of the time we're using wooden rattan weapons. Yeah. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to build a steel replica of the pole arm that I fight with. So that's how I kind of got into this, and I found that like I really enjoy it because it's a lot cheaper for me to build these things than to buy them, right? And what I found is like you can, if you go to like, I was actually planning to buy one like last year, and I looked at like some like $300 ones, and they kind of look like junk. Okay, and the ones that I really like the ones like this, they were like upwards of like $1,500. So I'm like, you know what? I think I'll invest the time and money to make these things on my own and make it exactly the way I want to do it. So that's how I've come around to making these Poleaxe. Okay, so anyway, drop some comments. Let me know what you guys think. Oh, worth also mentioning is the way I build these things. Great thing about Poleaxes and the way it's tapered here, it's center balanced, right? But it's also balanced on its y-axis, right? Because you got the same weight on this side and that side. So this it's balanced on its y-axis. So that's really beneficial, right? Because a lot of times if it's not balanced like that, it's really easy to lose your edge alignment. And like I was starting to say earlier, I use these barrels here. That's my test subject. So I've been doing this from the beginning, like building these things and testing on the barrels. The reason why I use the barrels, I've also used some wood too, but the reason I use the barrels is because they're about the thickness of plate armor, okay? So I use that, and I check the the impact surfaces here, and yeah, these things have been holding up really good. And also the way I built the shaft over here, reinforced all the way down. If there's if you look at some of the historical artwork, these poleaxes, pole arms in general, break just below the langet. So where So it's an obvious weakness. So I found one historical example in the Wallace collection, number A925, okay, that it's got like full length langets like this does, right? Go all the way down. And I thought that's like the solution to these things breaking. So that's kind of like what I've been basing my design on. Pretty much anything I build, I want full length langets, and this got like an 1/8 of an inch of steel going all the way down. So it's pretty much indestructible. Okay, even if I was to put this, even if I was to incinerate this, right? Even if I was to burn this, right? Like completely burn the wood out, these langets would not collapse, right? Because when I put the rivets through over here, right, and I mushroomed them, right, I hammered them on both sides. It's like a 3/16, I think, rivet. When I put it on both sides, and it mushrooms here, mushrooms over there, right? But then it also mushrooms in the center, inside of the wood. So even if you burn the wood out, the langets are not going to collapse because they've also thickened in the middle when I mushroomed this. So that's why this is, I think, is such an awesome design. And no, most poleaxes historically were not built this robust, but that's how I wanted to build it. Okay. So anyway, drop some comments. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you soon.